Okay, I hope you took a little break after our schedule management talk, because now we're going to get into cost management. And this one also has a few calculations in it, a few important calculations in it, so be ready. So let's get into cost management. Cost management talks about how we're going to control and manage costs in our project. Everything to do with the finances of our project. And before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, let's define a few different types of costs. You have direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are those that are directly associated with your project. Hey, I bought a plane ticket because I needed to go to the client to do so and so and so. I spent on equipment that I needed to purchase, software I needed to purchase, a new laptop I needed to purchase. These are all costs related to this specific project. Indirect costs are costs that are related to the organization as a whole, not to the project directly. So for example, the team that's working on this project, they need to be paid. Those salaries come from the organization. These are indirect costs, not taken on by the project, but by the organization. We also need to talk about fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are those that remain the same regardless of production output. So if I produce 100 units or 5,000 units, it doesn't matter. I still need to pay the same rent. I still need to pay the same insurance. Whereas variable costs vary based on production output. If I produce 100 units, then maybe it cost me $1,000 of raw material. If I produce 200 units, then it cost me $2,000 of raw material. These are variable costs. They change with output. Right. Let's now start talking a little bit about estimating costs. How do you know how much things are going to cost you in your project? Now, there's a few different ways that project managers typically go about this. There is what's known as a top-down approach and used by experienced project managers, where they use previous experiences, previous budgets they've used on similar projects to determine the overall budget for this project. And then they can start breaking that budget down into smaller pieces. The opposite end of that is using a bottom-up approach. And this is a very effective way of estimating costs, where you take your work breakdown structure, remember, scope management, you're going to take every work package or activity in your work breakdown structure, and you're going to estimate a cost for it. And then you're going to sum all these costs as you move up from the bottom up through your work breakdown structure. You're going to sum all these costs to arrive at a total cost at the end of the day, a total estimated cost of how much this project is going to cost you. And a third approach is what's known as the three-point estimate, a little less accurate than either of the top-down and bottom-up. This is where you do a calculation based on your most likely estimate, your optimistic estimate, and your pessimistic estimate. Not as accurate. The other two are used a little more often. So, moving on from estimating costs, we talk a little bit about reserves. You can't go into a project without reserves. Because by default, when you say, hey, I've identified some risks in my project, great, you need to have reserves to be able to handle that risks. Now, there are generally two types of reserves. A contingency reserve is money set aside for the risks you've identified. I've identified that risks 1, 2, and 3 are possible of happening. If they do happen, I'm going to take money out of my contingency reserve and off we go. I'm going to use that to tackle that risk. A management reserve is for things that we completely do not expect. Unknown unknowns. Risks I haven't identified, I didn't know about, and they have happened. That's what's called a management reserve. Money for things that I don't know what they are or if they could happen. You don't know what you don't know, right? Right. So we've covered quite a few things here. We talked about different types of costs. We talked about estimating costs and the different types of reserves you need to have on a project. We're going to stop it here and we'll see you on the next one.